People of YouTube, so I have decided to make a video about my fantasy book. Yeah, I realize it's been a while since I did one of those. So, the fantasy book, the name is changed to The Wizard Killer. This should be the final change. Although the main evil wizard doesn't actually get killed in the first book, or at least because I'm planning to make like a series. He gets killed later on by the nephew of the main character of the first book. So yeah, but let's just talk about the history and the backstory of all this because I find it much more productive to verbalize than to write things down. So in my fantasy universe, the first historical period was the Age of Man, which is very poorly known because well basically everything was done by wizards, and wizards had a habit of not writing things down. So, like, they would just like make audio recordings on like magic rocks and stuff. So, like, and there were some written documents, but like that was mostly made by like non-magical people that couldn't use the talking rocks. So, as a result, there's a lot of secondhand information about it. But what the what I have cooked up and like what the archaeologists of the fantastic world that I am constructing have figured out is that basically uh because humans in my fantasy universe were created by the king of the gods who had all of the magical powers, he gave them all the magical powers too. It's just that they had to work really hard to learn them and use them, and it was kind of difficult. But with enough time and effort, they could do basically anything except make themselves immortal. Although they could extend their lives indefinitely, so they may as well have been immortal. Anyway, um, as I was saying though, so basically, this period of history, like very little is known about it, and it lasted roughly like from the dawn of history, like for like about 10,000 years, I want to say. And then after the Age of Man was the Age of War, which was basically started because of the first war ever during an event known as the Fall of Man, where basically one really evil human wizard, uh, which basically what makes you a wizard versus what makes you a normal person was basically just education, if you knew how to use your magical powers. So one, high dude in the echelon elites of society decided, you know what, screw the gods, I want to become a god, and he thought the best way to do that was to kill the gods. So he literally launched a war on the gods. This was in the first like 1,000 years of the Age of War. Um, so this lunatic, his name was Randogin, launched this big terrible war against the gods, and was so powerful that he actually managed to kill one of them. He managed to kill the king of gods, the creator of man. Um, Although of course, being an immortal god, he is only dead temporarily, and no one knows what will happen when he is revived. Just to give a vague allusion to Christianity. Um, and also that one Norse myth with the guy that Loki killed. As I was saying, though, about all of this magical business, basically what happened was the other gods were like, hey, how can we defeat these evil humans? So they got together with all of the good wizards and the non magical humans and created um, the other races of the realm. Um, However, the evil wizards created their own races to match, but most of them wound up joining the gods anyway because, the gods were not oppressing them terribly. And the humans made the mistake of giving their creations free will. They would never do that again. Um, anyway, So basically, what happened was both the divinely created races, I guess you would call them the Deus Incarnata, uh, were like the elves, were created by the god of the wilderness and his brother, the god of agriculture. Uh, the god of fire created dragons. Uh, the god of the forge, who was the son of the god of fire, so like like the god of steam, I guess would be a better thing to call him. Like the god of civilization, essentially, who was the son of the god of fire, created the dwarves, and the goddess of the sea created mermaids. The mermaids didn't really do all that much because they were in the ocean, but the evil wizards couldn't use boats because there were mermaids. Anyway, and other people created other races, but the main Deus Incarnata would be the elves, the dwarves, the dragons, and the mermaids. Uh, I think no, that's all of them. That's all four. Um, well, no, there's one more. There's one. The fifth Deus Incarnata um, was the centaurs were created by the god of war, who was the other son of the god of fire. So anyway, so the god of war, um, created the centaurs, which is why, like, even to this day in my fantasy universe, the centaurs just basically run around like in roving hordes, just burning and pillaging like Vikings, only over land because they have the lower body of a horse. Like not just like the lower body of a horse, but like their lower half is most of a horse. It's like cut off a horse's head and then sew on a human torso, and that's basically a centaur. They're just traditional centaurs, not weird, crazy centaurs. Although, well, it's less that they're like horses and more that they're four-legged. Like they got like toes. I never mind. I haven't figured out like the proper design for them yet. So they might be like normal centaurs. They might just be humans but with four legs. Anyway, something. They might be the cousins of dragons, which I guess it makes sense since dragons have four legs and wings. It makes sense for them to be like dragonic beings. Like an entire like lineage of vertebrates with six legs or limbs, I suppose. So that's basically like that. And then, other than the Deus Incarnata, is the less divine races, the races that were created by the wizards, good and evil alike. Such as I'll talk about those in the next video. Goodbye, friends.